Story from a Hospital Security Guard by CavalierRigg. It was a year ago next week when I got a call back from my manager Ted saying that I had gotten an interview to work at my large regional hospital here in Utah. In honor of my 1-year anniversary at work, I thought I would share one of my creepier security calls with all of you. A call that I received on my second day on the job. I was, and still am, a student at a large university, and being a poor, ramen almost every meal college student, it was a dream come true when my roommate, a nursing student, called me about an opening at the hospital he had just learned of. I was doing everything in my power to come out of college debt-free, but a college education is pretty expensive, and my flight school of choice to become a commercial pilot is going to run me about $80,000 more. Needless to say, I was looking for a few jobs to help me along. My interview went about as well as I could have hoped. The interview was conducted by a retired police officer named Ted, a grandpa whose warm eyes and a jolly temperament were comforting. I was asked about my academics, work history, which included a short time with my university's police force, and I was run through a physical fitness test and scenarios gauging how I would react. After being told that I had passed the interview and got the job, I remember asking lightheartedly how a job that paid $15.32 an hour and covered weekends could be vacant for a few months. My question was cut off by a sudden change in atmosphere, as if someone had suddenly opened a window to the cold, frozen air outside. "Oh, one more thing. You don't believe in ghosts, do you?" Ted said. My chuckle and smile faded from my mouth as a laid-back Ted, who had done my interview with complete relaxation and ease, was now staring at me seriously. All the previous warmth had been replaced by the grizzled scowl of a retired cop. I felt my blood begin to slowly ice over as the fear from this seemingly random question caught me off guard. My mind raced to make sense of my world as I processed the question. Did he just ask me if I think that ghosts are real? What? The question itself was strange enough. But why is Ted so tense? Why did he look almost, angry isn't the right word. No, disturbed. Maybe, but why is he so forward with asking such a seemingly unprofessional thing? No, sir, I said. Are you sure? He repeated himself with even more sternness than his original question. Yes, Ted, I'm sure. Well, okay then, you've got the job. I'll see you Friday night. My shiny black boots clacked down the fake wood flooring of the hospital as I made my rounds. My metal badge felt heavy on my uniform, as my radio earpiece kept getting caught on its edge. I looked pretty good, if I do say so myself. My radio, keys, and taser all hung off on the right side of my utility belt, as my work phone and flashlight hung off on my left. This was my second day on the job, and my first day that I was walking around the hospital by myself. The night before, Friday, I had been guided around by Devin, a senior security officer who had shown me around the winding and twisting hallways of the hospital. Now, with Devin responding to an emergency helicopter landing out on the helipad, I was left alone to navigate the labyrinth. It was approximately 2:15 a.m. when the phone's tone blared to life at full blast, snapping my eyelids to attention. I had been sitting at my desk with the plasma screens displaying countless feeds from the interior and exterior security cameras when I started to doze off slightly. I answered the phone in my office with my most official tone that I could muster, trying to hide any sleepiness in my voice. Security, how can I help you? There was just silence. Hello? You've reached hospital security. Do you need help? Hello? Can you hear me? My manner shifted from urgency to mild annoyance at the thought of getting a pocket dial from a nurse's work phone. All I could hear was silence and ambient static on the other end. No indication that someone needed my help. I looked at the in-house phone number and was instantly confused. 72493. The 7s at the front of the number mean that it's a landline, I thought to myself as I cupped the phone with my shoulder and my ear as I looked through my notepad. Just as my mind began to falter in making sense of the situation, I heard a faint voice of what sounded like an elderly woman over the line.
Hello?
Oh, hello, sorry. I'm a little new and I couldn't hear you. This is hospital security. How can I help you?
Where am I?
Ma'am, are you lost? How can I help you?
It's cold, and I don't know where I am. Please come help me.
I heard the soft click of the line being hung up. While I was confused, I wasn't without a sense of the situation. I had been briefed that since this was a hospital, we often had a lot of old, senile inpatients. That's patients that stay overnight at the hospital. And they would sometimes get out of their beds and wander, thus getting lost. While in most of these situations it would be a nurse or a tech calling me about a missing patient and calling an adult code pink, which is hospital code for a missing patient, the landline phones, if picked up, would automatically begin dialing security if no buttons were pressed for a few seconds. All the landline phones in the hospital did this, and they are all marked as such. It was not out of the realm of possibility that an elderly woman had gotten lost and called me. I looked up on my interactive map where line 72493 was, and it gave me a location. South Tower, 2nd floor, room 5. I jogged down the halls to the elevator of the South Tower and determined I was going to find whoever had called me. I came out of the elevator and I rounded the corner. I stood in shock as I read the plaque on the door near the number 5. Morgue. Employee clearance required, the sign said. Red flags and warning alarms were going off in my head. How could a patient have gotten into the morgue? The doors need a badge scan to get in. How could she have gotten in, I thought. I felt my heart rate climbing as I recalled the elderly woman on the phone mentioning something about it being cold. I shuddered at the thought, but I scanned my badge and entered the dark room. I was not going to lose my job because an old lady got lost, called me, and I didn't do anything about it. The door gave a loud click as I walked into the dark morgue. The hum of the large silver freezers to my left filled the silent room with an ominous, electric noise. The small circle of my flashlight illuminated the room as I attempted to find the switch to turn on the lights, but to no avail. The light reflected off the sterile, steel autopsy tables in the middle of the room, causing long shadows to distort themselves on the walls. My boots made a betrayingly loud smack as I walked on the tile towards the doctor's office, where I assumed the phone would be. On the right, shelves and racks of jars of liquid, of what I can only imagine to be samples, lined the wall, giving off a sickly smell of formaldehyde. As I approached the door to the doctor's office / autopsy record room, I noticed a faint glow of light coming from under the door. A shadow moved across the room, back and forth in a slow, yet sporadic way that I could tell was someone moving inside. It was my patient. I knocked on the door, only to see the shadow move closer to the door, almost completely obstructing the light coming from under the door. "Hospital security, please open the door."
Where am I?
The female voice from earlier replied back in the same quiet tone as on the phone. "Ma'am, you are in a secure part of the hospital. I'm here to take you back to your room. Your nurse will want to see you." I replied warmly to help ease some of her fears that she no doubt had been feeling. Suddenly, darkness engulfed the bottom of the door as I heard a loud thump on the floor in the other room. Adrenaline began pumping through my veins. I pressed the red emergency button on my radio, which instantly connected me to the hospital's dispatch PBX operator, to which I called for a rapid response to the South Tower, Floor 2, Room 5, for a possible cardiac arrest. I ripped the radio off of my belt to get my keys, and it blasted 5 loud chirps that said that help was on the way. I placed my flashlight on the cold autopsy table, the light facing the door, as I fumbled with my keys to get the door unlocked. As I jammed the master key into the lock, I turned it hard as the tumbler gave way to the force. I slammed the handle down as I nearly ripped the door off its hinges to find nothing. There was absolutely nobody in the room. And the soft glow of the room was not from the light, but from the computer screen in the corner, which glowed a soft blue from the Windows 10 login screen. I walked in, my back bathed in the light from my flashlight on the table behind me, trying to see if she had crawled further into the room behind one of the walls of the 2 cubicles in the room, only to find that it was empty. The cold, still air filled the silence as my radio went quiet after having given off its confirmation that help was on the way. Suddenly, the room went dark as I heard my flashlight being turned off in the other room. The room was so still and quiet in that moment that not even the freezer's hum could silence my deafening heartbeat. I swung around, liquid fear coursed through my body as I backed up to the wall, drawing my taser and flicking on the switch as the battery charged my weapon to life. I didn't know what was in the main room of the morgue, but there was something there. The computer's soft glow illuminated the pure horror in front of me. The outline of a shadowy figure as it glided close to the door, silently, facing towards me. The figure was smaller, maybe 5'6", and had completely trapped me in the small office. Seeing the small green ready light on the display of my taser, I pressed the arc button, which sent a current down the metallic prongs of my weapon, lighting the walls with a white glow. And for a few brief seconds, I saw the figure illuminated. A pasty white woman with dark holes for eyes, standing barefoot in a hospital gown. I screamed as the figure seemingly lurched forward in a falling motion, causing me to drop down and climb under the computer desk for protection, where I promptly blacked out. I woke up the next morning in a hospital bed with Ted sitting beside me. The clock read 7:30 a.m. He looked at me with sad eyes as tears began to roll down my cheeks. Ted sat up and pulled his chair closer to me, calmly asking, "Did you see her?" I relayed my whole story to him as he calmly sat and listened, never interrupting. After my story, he took a deep sigh and explained that 30 years ago, an older woman with dementia had blinded herself and claimed a demon in the hospital had attempted to enter her body. When she died of a heart attack within a few months later, the doctors in the morgue claimed that her body began to decompose rapidly, even in the freezer, and that strange sounds could be heard in the machine, and later in the building itself. Ted told me that the hospital's cardiac rapid response team had found me up there passed out, to which they brought me to the ER where they admitted me to the hospital. Ted reluctantly told me that every so often, we will get a call from the phone up in the morgue between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m., and that we were under no circumstances to answer, and that Devin should have told me that. Because the occurrence is just so unorthodox, no official reports are ever filed when we see, hear, or receive calls/reports about her from the other staff members. Despite having considered quitting that day, I decided to stick with it and stay strong. The hours are still good and the pay is great. Now, as I look at my past year working here at the hospital, I can honestly say it's not too bad. I have seen that entity twice since then, but now I can honestly say that I'm not scared anymore. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm getting a security call and it's from line 72493.